When we start a new project, we just look at totally blank screen and we want to use TDD. But how are we supposed to start with that? What are the prerequisites to enable us to do TDD, and what is the first test that we're actually going to write? So one concept that I think is really helpful is the concept of a walking skeleton. We want to implement just enough code that we can actually have end-to-end functionality in our system, and we're going to build that using TDD and the TDD process. But we cannot just start writing tests from nothing. We need to have some idea where we're going. So even though TDD prescribes that we really don't need architecture up front, we still need some kind of idea about where we're going. In some cases, if the system is simple or it's something that you have done a lot of time, you will kind of have it in the back of your head that you know where you're going, so you don't really need a drawing of it. But in some cases where it's new territory or it's a domain that you're not used to, I think we can benefit from having a little bit of design up front to understand what the boundaries of our system is going to be. Another benefit of having this idea from the beginning is that by implementing end-to-end and having it kind of pressure tested by TDD, is that now we are also really testing that the idea is also sound, that the architecture we are doing is reasonable. Because the absolute best way to test an idea out is if we automate it, because automation requires us to have a much deeper understanding that we would have otherwise if we were just to do manual testing, for example. So by having the automation process as well, we really test that everything is as it's supposed to be. So to set up a TDD project, the initial step will be we need to understand the problem. We need to have some brainstorming where we actually understand the problem. Maybe not the complete problem of the full domain, but we need to have some idea about at least part of the problem domain. Because that will lead to some kind of architectural system. We have some way of structuring the thoughts that we were having. It's not going to be full-fledged architecture. It's just going to be some idea about how we're going to do this. So it's going to be something broad brush design. When we have that, we want to start our automation part. So when we automate, we want to make sure that our build process is automated. We want to make sure that our deployment is automated. We want to make sure that the end-to-end test is automated. We don't necessarily want a full-fledged like Selenium test suite or anything like that, but we need to have some kind of verification that when we actually have deployed our system, then it is actually running as well. So when we have all of that automated, we have a very thin slice of our system already in place. We have what's called a walking skeleton, and that is what allows us to start our TDD process. Where we have the start by writing a test, make it pass, and refactor. So it's only when we actually have some level of existing functionality that we can hope to apply TDD. It's not something that you can start with right off the bat.